Well, speaking of the Teals, polling suggests a genuine possibility of a hung parliament, meaning the next government may depend on the support of just a handful of independents. Hamish has the story.
You walk into a cafe, Albo's sitting there, Peter Dutton's sitting there. Who do you sit down with for a coffee?
I think I go and find another cafe.
In 2022, a tsunami of Teal independents flipped traditionally Liberal seats, demanding greater action on climate change and pressuring both sides of politics from the crossbench.
The message from this parliament today must be unambiguous.
But it wasn't just the Teals making waves. Other independents, like Western Sydney's MP for Fowler, Di Lee, hopped in too. 10 were elected to the House of Representatives, the greatest number since federal government was established back in 1901.
Fowler was the second safest seat for Labor at the last federal election, and I, took that away from them.
The major political parties are just obsessed with their political self-interest, with little awareness or concern for the public interest. That's why their vote's going down. That's why the vote for independence is going up.
At the last federal election, both major parties' primary votes crashed to historic lows. And if the upcoming election results in a hung parliament, as many predict, independents of all kinds could become kingmakers. How does the term kingmaker sit with you?
I think it's really presumptuous.
I'm not comfortable with the term kingmaker.
Oh, look, I'm not going to be presumptuous.
To start calling yourself a kingmaker or thinking you're a kingmaker is to be, I think, terribly arrogant.
It might not sit well, but if no major party wins a clear majority, the independents could become the most important players on the political chessboard. You think you're feeling confident enough?
I'm feeling confident enough, absolutely. I don't like to put condition. I'm not black and white. It's about...
You might have to.
It's about having a conversation.
We care about the environment. We want climate policy that's based on the science and is based on, economics as well.
We should not be banning gas. In my community, once we've stabilised the energy price for our community, then we can explore other avenues.
Things like tax reform, and that is a discussion I'd love to have with the major parties, because we need to do the right things by the next generation.
The infrastructure needs, our public transport, our trains, no investment there, bills, energy, gas, insurance, grocery, petrol. Right? So these are the things that people are telling me that's impacting them.
For someone that says they don't like putting out conditions, that's quite a long list.
It's a negotiation. When you sit down, you negotiate. You say, these are the lists I have. Will you deliver for my community?
They need to start looking after this electorate and stop taking it for granted.
The last hung parliament we saw was back in 2010, when rural independents Rob Oakeshott, Tony Windsor and Tasmanian MP Andrew Wilkie agreed to help Julia Gillard form government.
In fact, it was an 8-page typed document signed by Julia and myself. But halfway through that term of Parliament, the government refused to deliver on what it had agreed in writing in that contract.
The Prime Minister walked away from her deal with Andrew Wilkie.
After Labor backtracked on Wilkie's condition for pokies reform, he withdrew support for the Gillard government.
The government's given Andrew Wilkie short shrift, but his is not a vote it can afford to lose.
There was any number of votes during that second half of that term where my vote was crucial, and I certainly had more influence without a deal than with a deal.
As one of the most experienced independent MPs, Wilkie's now got some advice.
I'm saying to all my colleagues, do what you want, of course, but this is my experience and I won't be doing a deal again.
Do you trust the major parties?
I trust them to do what is in their interest. Look, there are people I've worked with across the board who I think, I have a high degree of trust, and there are others that I don't. And I think I certainly consider that.
But some in this new generation of independents may also have a secret weapon when it comes to the negotiating table.
As you know, Hamish, when someone gives me a BS line, I get all worked up. So
you got a good shit detector.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I have that BS detector.
Let there be 1,000 blossoms, blooms.
Di Lee also has Bob Catter in her corner.
In the meantime, every 3 months, a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
Sometimes I spent about half an hour trying to get that little gem out of the conversation with Bob. I don't know if you ever chatted to Bob.
Can you understand everything? Because I can't.
No, that's right. If you can't, can you imagine me, I sit there and I'm kind of trying to decipher what he's trying to say. But I know the end of what he's trying to say is that he's looking after me and making sure that I come back.
In the leafy eastern suburbs of Sydney, Wentworth MP Allegra Spender is hopeful of a second term.
I think Australians are mainly in the centre. And I think that's why people have left the major parties, is because people are frustrated, you know, with the sort of swinging here and then swinging back. I think we need to fight to hold the centre, and that's really what I'm trying to do.
At the moment, they don't believe the major parties because there's been so many scripted, disingenuous conversations and scripted lines when they're standing out there talking. Let's be genuine. Let's bring some kind of authenticity back in having conversations, and let's see how people will react to that.
There's a question that's raised always by the major parties. What's the point of having an independent MP? They'll never decide the policy.
Look, I think firstly, independents have, in the last parliament and I think in previous parliaments, made a real difference. And I think it's about how we add to legislation, make it better. It's how we advocate on issues the major parties don't want to touch, such as gambling, such as tax reform.
This nonsense that's being peddled by the major parties and by some in the media, that the only stable, effective government is majority government. Well, it's just that. It's complete and utter nonsense. And I think the more independence in the parliament, the closer we get to that pure form of democracy.
Well, a big thank you to Hamish McDonald for bringing us that story and sitting down with the independents. And if you are thinking about defacing a poster, don't do it. But if you are going to, remember the rule. It's Dior for Dutton and Maybelline for Albanese.
All I know is it's a long time to the election. Strap in, everybody.